talk about tonight. And if you have questions, talk to me about it afterwards. We're going to do Q&A. We're all going to talk. If you want to talk more after the Q&A, I'm going to be here till Sunday. Let's get coffee. Let's get a beverage. Let's get lunch. I'd love to talk to you about it. But I hope you brought your scuba gear. Hope you brought your scuba gear because we're going to kind of go deep with this stuff. So I'm going to just go ahead and start out with the first 3 points, I guess. The 3 greats that you see in this passage. You're going to see the greatest claim of all time. Greatest claim of all time. The greatest problem that the human race faces and the greatest mission on earth. Great claim, great problem, greatest mission. You guys want to get in it? All right, let's go. First, the greatest claim. Jesus fully realized all that was going to happen to him. Stepped forward to meet them, and he asked, "Who are you looking for?" Jesus Nazarene, and he says, "I am he." And when I first read that statement, first reading the Bible, I'm like, why is Jesus saying "I am" all the time? It's really weird. And you have to realize, you have to go back to the Old Testament and what the Hebrew Scriptures said. In Exodus chapter 3, God comes to Moses. He says, "Moses, I want you to go to Pharaoh. I want you to tell Pharaoh to let my people go." And Moses was like, "Dude, I'll do that, but I got to know what your name is." And God simply said, "Tell him I am, send him. Tell him I am who I am. That's my name." Or it's translated sometimes as Yahweh. There's debates on how you translate it. That's irrelevant. The point is, when God's saying "I am," and in the Greek there, it's not "I am he," it's just "I am." Jesus is saying not much, but actually quite a bit. When Jesus says "I am," when God says that, he's saying, "I am the first and I am the last." There's no because about me. I depend on nobody. All things, all people solely depend on me. The whole cosmos itself revolves around me. And it's really profound claim. What's even more profound is a living, breathing human being says, "I am." Jesus is throwing down the gauntlet here. He's claiming to be God. He's saying, you know that guy back in the Old Testament, that God that appeared in the burning bush to Moses? I'm that God. I'm that God. And this claim really hurts, and this is kind of where I go in my ministries. I really engage in secular culture. The atheists or the people that are like, "I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious." People who are seeking, but necessarily hate religion, but they're looking for spirituality. And this really hurts their paradigm, our Western paradigm of religion. How many of you, all of you go to Eastern Oregon, I assume. Some of you do not, but maybe you've taken a religion course and you've heard this term before. The culture at large buys in this worldview called religious pluralism or universalism. Has anyone heard that before? It essentially says this: all the religions in Christianity, including Christianity, are really, really good. Really, really good. And they all are many different religions, but they're all the same and lead to the same path. And you have to make the choice of what you decide, but either way, you're good. Just pick what your personal preference is. It's like ice cream. Oh, you like vanilla? I like chocolate. Or I like sherbet. Or I like Rocky Road. It's just a matter of personal preference. And Jesus doesn't allow that to happen. Because Jesus is saying, every religion says this. Every religion, every worldview says this: "I'm a prophet, I'm a sage, come to show you the way to God." Or "I'm going to show you the way to live." Jesus is completely opposite and contradictory to any other religion that's existed, because he says, "I am not just a prophet or a sage, come to show you the way to God. I am the way and the truth and the life. I am the way and the truth and life." He's like, look, I am not a prophet or sage, come to show you how to find God, but I am God, come to find you. Do you see the difference? Sometimes in our religious paradigm, in our Western paradigm, we kind of tend to think as God, and some people think of it as mystical, kind of like Star Wars, like the Force. It's kind of how we think of God, like, ooh, it's kind of this abstract, plastic idea, but God is not something we pursue, and he's like running away from us. Actually, it's quite different. It's actually God is pursuing you, and you're the one actually running away. And And that's totally different from what every other religion says. And if Jesus is right, which I believe he is, if Jesus is right, then Christianity has to be superior to all the religions of the world. Every worldview has to be superior. And there should be nothing we should like about Christianity. There should be nothing about it. If we are not Christians, there should be nothing about it, because either three things are possible. Number one, he could be a total liar. Well, Jesus was lying. So he would be on the level of like Charles Manson and Adolf Hitler, because he misled billions of people. Or he's a lunatic, crazy person. People claim to be God and they're crazy all the time. Perfectly rational. But you cannot be mild about Jesus. You can't just say, Jesus is a nice guy. I like some of his teachings. You've never read the scriptures. I'm sorry. If you claim to read the Bible and say, well, Jesus is just a good person, I don't believe this whole Son of God thing. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to insult people who believe that. Maybe you're one of those people. You don't know how to read, or you've never read the Bible before. There's a place in scriptures where Jesus says, he's talking to his political opponents, I keep sending you prophets and sages over the years and the centuries, and you keep killing them. What? There's another place where he's like, hey, before the foundations of the world, I saw Satan fall from heaven. What? Who are you? Where are you from? If Jesus is who he says he has to be superior to all the other religions. If he's not, then there should be nothing we like about Christianity. It can't be equal to all the religions if Jesus is wrong. You're either a crazy person or a bad man. And you could say, well, the gospel accounts, they're legendary. And I recommend, and some of you may have heard that before, I recommend you buy a book. It's by Richard Bauckham. It's called Jesus and the Eyewitnesses, written by a professional historian. Bookmark it, add it to your wish list with all the other 50 million stuff that you don't buy. That's me with my hands on this. I don't know if that's you, but that's me. It's like, gosh, I really want those pair of shoes, but I can't justify spending $200 going on the wish list. But I recommend you buy that book. Because over the last 50 years, in New Testament scholarship, they used to believe that the gospel accounts are legendary. Richard Bauckham says, no, they're not. Because the novel wasn't invented until 500 years ago. Ancient literature, you don't see when they're talking about Zeus, Zeus at 6 o'clock met with so-and-so. There's no specific times. And you see that in John 18. Who's this dude, Malchus, high priest slave? Like, why do they put that in there? Why? It's not in Mark, it's not in Matthew, it's not in Luke, it's not in any of the synoptic gospels. Why does John throw that in there? Because this is written during the time of the eyewitnesses. And John is saying, essentially, it's his way of citing sources. You have learned that as a college kid writing a paper. And he's saying, if you want to verify this, go to Malchus and you can talk to him. He was there. This is John's way of saying, here's an eyewitness, go refer to him. Why in the world would you put someone's name there if he could easily say, no, Jesus didn't do that. That's stupid. I was there. Why don't you put someone's name in there? They're going to rebuke your claim, especially an enemy of Jesus. And it's the greatest claim of all time. You could do three things. You could say, well, I'm seeking still. That's cool. You could say another thing. I think he's a crazy person. Just not be a Christian. Or you can fall on your knees and worship him as Lord. You cannot have a mild response to Jesus. You have no intellectual integrity if you do that. That's the greatest claim. But it leads into the second problem. And this is mind-blowing. I didn't know about this till recently. This is cool. I was talking about this with John. In verse 4, Jesus fully realizing who he was and what was going to happen, when he stepped forward to meet them, he says, who are you looking for? Verse 5, Jesus Nazarene, they replied. He says, I am he. Jesus said, I am he. They all drew back and fell to the ground. And once more he asked them, who are you looking for? Did you guys notice, that's weird? They all fell to the ground. You guys know what that, did you catch that? And it's kind of, it's hard to read this in the English, but when you look at the Greek, you look at that word detachment. How many of you seen Passion of the Christ? Okay, how many soldiers, someone tell me, how many soldiers go after Jesus? Anyone want to guess? How many soldiers? 6? 12? That word detachment in the Greek actually is a specific military unit. It's cohort. Cohort numbered between 500 and 658 men. They send 600 plus dudes after Jesus, after this meek, mild Rabbi Carpenter. Overkill much. And it was part of their protocol because they thought Jesus was a revolutionary. But Jesus kind of sits there, and they're all surrounding him with spears and swords. And these are tough guys. These are guys who fought in all the wars. They were tough guys. They're the best. So these are imperial Roman troops. They're surrounding him. They're like, we're looking for Jesus Nazarene. And Jesus kind of flexes a little bit and says, I am he. And they all fall down. And then it's kind of funny. Jesus is being sassy. And he's like, they all fall down. He's like, who are you looking for again? It's like, yo, Jesus, you're funny. But this is teaching something so important. It's through all the scriptures. It's this. It's our greatest problem. No one can stand in the presence of God and keep it. No one can do it. You see it in Ezekiel chapter 1. The prophet Ezekiel sees God's throne room, and he's like, a whole chapter. He's like, oh my gosh, I saw a rainbow. And it's thrown in the cherubim, and I literally felt like I was going to die. That's how it finished. And then there's, the John the Revelator in the book of Revelation, talking about how he saw the fully glorified Jesus. He's like, his hair was white as wool. He had a golden sash and sword in his mouth. How many of you think that makes sense? It doesn't make sense. And it's not supposed to make sense because John can't even find the words to explain what he's saying. He's struggling. And at the end of it, what does John say? I literally felt like I was going to die. Where you see, in the book of Leviticus, Aaron's sons approach the Ark of the Covenant in the Holies of Holies in an improper way. And they do the law wrong. They don't follow the procedures. And they are struck dead. This is throughout all of Scriptures. Is you cannot stand in the presence of God and live. Why is that? It's not as weird as you think. Because we live, you all know this, you should know this, we live in a performance-based culture. It's all about, if you're from the South, if you're from more of a traditional family values kind of family, it's about how good of a son I am. That's my identity. How good of a mother I am. What does my family think of me? Or if you're from Washington or New York, or you're from more of a liberal area, it's all about my resume. I'm a football player. I'm from this Ivy League school. This is my GPA. I'm an athlete. Oh, so-and-so has a crush on me. I got this boyfriend or this girlfriend. It's all about resume and performance. Or we take pride in the fact that we're very beautiful or very brilliant. How many followers on Instagram I have. Or who's following me on Snapchat. But what happens, this happens all the time, what happens when you get in the presence of someone way more beautiful than you? You literally feel like you could die, couldn't you? It's true. Don't laugh. When you see that girl on Instagram, when you see that guy on Instagram that's a little bit buffer than you, and you see that girl that's a little bit prettier, you're like, oh my gosh. You know it's true. You laugh because it's true. If we feel that way in front of human glory, what makes you, imagine what it would be like. And Ezekiel's trying to explain it, and John the Revelator is trying to explain it. What do you think it would be like in the presence of something infinitely greater than you? Infinitely more beautiful than you are. Infinitely more pure than you are. You want to keep your foot. And that kind of it alludes to Judgment Day a little bit. Judgment Day. Judgment Day. A lot of churches don't like talking about Judgment Day. Because we kind of look at it as oh, Jesus is coming back, and he's smiting everybody, he's angry. That's the view we get of Judgment Day. Especially secular people. People who are not Christians are like, oh, God's judging people. How dare you? And I would say to the secular person, actually, Judgment Day is your greatest hope. The wrath of God is absolutely your greatest hope. Especially the time if you have lived under the rock and you don't know what's going on, it's crazy in the news right now. Especially right now, because Judgment Day says this: no one will get away with anything. All the world's in the wrong will be made right. I'm talking about people who commit genocide, poverty, social injustices, the people who have been hiding through the sexual scandals that we don't know about. God knows all of it, and he says, I'm coming back and I'm going to set the record straight. The people that are beautiful and they're ugly on the inside, I'm going to make their actual appearance come true. That's what Judgment Day says. It's actually people who want Judgment Day. But here's the problem with Judgment Day. If God's going to come back and make every wrong right, what makes you think that you and I can stand at Judgment Day? Because I don't know about you. I'm just going to talk about me for a second. I'm going to talk about, just imagine this for a second. Say there's an invisible man following you around. Kind of weird. Just imagine it. He's an angel, and he records every time you say the word ought. Oh, you ought to live that way. Or you ought to not be so prideful. Or you ought to, slow down and, not drink so much or whatever. And the angel comes down. And God comes down. He's like, who are you? I was a guy following you around. And the angel's like, I'm going to give you the fairest judgment day ever. Fairest judgment day. Not going to judge you on the Ten Commandments. Not going to judge you on the basis of Jesus. Not going to judge you on the basis of the Bible. I'm going to judge you based off of your moral standard. How you tell people how they should live. You think you'd stand your ground? I know this. Well, I don't like snobs. I really don't. How many of you like snobs? Nobody, right? Do we all agree on that? Some of you are just kind of like, oh. I will take your silence as yes, but here's the deal. If you hate snobs, you don't like snobs, then that makes you a snob against snobs, and therefore you're a snob. Oh, I can't stand people who are prideful. They're so arrogant, and thank goodness I'm not like them. Wow, you're really proud about being, you're really proud against proud people. That makes you a proud person. Do you look your nose down at people? Are you looking your nose down at people, or looking their nose down at people? Ouch. There's no way you can stand on your own ground in the presence of God. There's no way you can live up to the standard. This is the greatest problem we have. It's not just the religious people have this problem. People who've grown up in the church, where they've kind of self-righteous, but also the people who are secular have that problem too. Wow, this is the most depressing talk ever. Thanks, Brendan. Should I stop there, John? Is that good?
What?
Should I stop there? You got time? You got 5 minutes? You sure? Just making sure. Well, I mean, you do. What's up?
You got all the time in the world.
Appreciate it, man. Well, you do see the solution in the text. And it's the Great Mission. And Jesus says to the people that are going to arrest him, I told you I'm he, verse 8. Jesus says, since I'm the only one you want, let the others go. And he did this to fulfill his statement. I did not lose a single one of you that you have given me. It's kind of going to give you a little historical preface. It's Roman soldiers. Sends a whole battalion after this meek, mild Rabbi Carpenter. And then part of the procedure was, they had to capture the leader. Part of the protocol is they're going to arrest all of his disciples. And that means no one would ever hear from them again. They would be either in prison for life or they'd be tortured and killed. And they were dead men. And there's Jesus before this battalion. And he says, take me. Take me. Me for them. Let them go. Substitution. Take me. And let them go. Has anyone in here seen The Last Mohicans? That Daniel Sweet. You're like, you and Karen. Nice. Good movie choices. Sweet movie. Love it. It's Daniel Day-Lewis from 92. And at the ending of that movie, you're familiar with that movie, there's this ending. And it's during the French-Indian War, and there's 3 main characters. There's Hawkeye, who's the native, Duncan, who's the British guy, and then there's the beautiful Cora, the girl they're all fighting over. Hawkeye and Duncan are like fighting over each other for Cora, the babe in the movie. But Cora loves Hawkeye more than Duncan. And they get captured by the Hurons, the natives. They're all speaking French, and the only person that's not speaking French is Hawkeye. And Hawkeye's sitting there, and the chief, the bar of justice, the chief of the tribe says, Cora's got to die. The girl's got to die for her father's sin. She's got to be thrown in this hot fire. They're going to lift her up on a scaffolding. They're going to literally crucify her. And Hawkeye says, take me. Me for her. Substitution. And Duncan's translating, and Hawkeye goes on, he's like, Duncan, tell the French, take me, throw me in the fire. And Duncan says something in French, the chief. The chief just sits there, and he nods. And what happened is, Duncan is taken, and Cora's let go, and Duncan is taken, and he is thrown in the fire in the place of her. And then Hawkeye realized something. I realized something when I watched that. Duncan, out of love for someone who didn't love him, laid down his life so that she could be saved. And that's exactly what Jesus did. Jesus says, take me. I'll go through the fire. I'll go to the cross. You're worth it. Take me. I will substitute their place. I will go through the scaffolding. I will be crucified for them. And that's great. You might be thinking, well, he did that for the disciples. How do I know he did that for me? And it's that last part. Of course, he talks about the cup. What's this deal with the cup? You guys ever hear this? Like Jesus, like, Father, let this cup pass from me, but let your will be done. What's so big deal about the cup? Is the cup the difference between Diet Coke and Pepsi? No! The cup's this Old Testament thing. It's judgment. The cup is judgment. It's God's wrath. The cup is what God's going to make the tyrants drink in Ezekiel, in the book of Ezekiel. The cup is it's the cup of desolation. It's a cup of wrath. And Jesus says, I'm going to the cross to take your place, to take the wrath of God so that you can get the treatment and the righteousness that I deserve. I'm trading places with you. It's so incredible, the blood of Christ. You know, in the Old Testament, the story of Cain and Abel. It says the blood of Abel cried out from the ground as his brother killed him. As God says, I hear Abel's voice crying out from the ground, vengeance! It cries out vengeance. But in the book of Hebrews, in the New Testament, it says that the blood of Jesus cries out from the ground, grace! Grace! Yes, I know they've screwed up. I know they've done wrong. I know they messed up. But I have paid it all. I've paid it all. Completely, 100%. My righteousness has paid it for all. Now they're righteous with my righteousness. And secular people would say, well, Judgment Day, there's no Judgment Day, and what hope is there for the world? And religious people would say, there is a Judgment Day, and the judge is coming back, and he's making a list, checking it twice, so you better be good. But the gospel says that the great judge from heaven came down and was judged in your place. He stood trial on your behalf. It's the exchange. My life for theirs. I give you the crown of life while I take the crown of thorns. I enthrall you and dress you in royal robes while I was literally stripped naked. I give you my kingly possessions of jewelry while I was pierced. So incredible. And so what are some things you can take away from this? Like, okay, this is great, but how do I apply this? And number one, I wrote down, and I thought of this the other day, is you can stop putting yourself on trial. You don't have to beat yourself up anymore because Jesus already took the beating. And you know what I'm talking about. A lot of people, here's the tragedy in life, a lot of people wear the mask and pretend, especially Christians, because they feel guilty. Sin. And then I'm good. And who's that guy from Simpsons? Ned Flanders. You're Ned Flanders. Giddy do, guys. I'm great. And you pretend like you're Ned Flanders and that everything is okay, and you put on this mask, and it's good intentions. You put on this religious mask, and you're okay. Or maybe you're not religious at all, and you put on a mask like, I'm independent, I'm cool, bro. I'm living the life. Yeah, dude, it's that. Oh gosh, I forget that movie. Yeah, man, that's like your opinion. What movie is that? Big Lebowski. You're like the Big Lebowski. That's what you think. But here's the problem with the mask. If you wear a mask, it's not you. If you pretend to be someone else, it's not you who gets loved. It's the mask who gets loved. I never get loved. And our greatest hope is that we're fully known, fully accepted. And our greatest fear is that we're fully known and rejected. And Jesus Christ has looked at you to the bottom, and he's loved you to the stars. God sits there and he says, what if they knew who they were? What if they knew that they were righteous for my righteousness? What if they knew that they could hurt my heart? But I would never hurt theirs. What if they knew that I would never, ever, in relation to them, use the word punish? What if they know they could stop being religious and stop acting so weird and jumpy around me? I can imagine God saying, what if they knew I liked YouTube musics too? Or the these and the thous kind of bothered me as well. What if they knew that they were righteous of my righteousness? What if they knew that the Christmas carols and the ringing bells made me feel awkward too? What if they knew that because of my son, they were 100% accepted of me? That's the gospel. It's the gospel. Is you are accepted 100%. Now you obey. You don't obey to get acceptance from him. You're accepted. You obey out of love